Good afternoon. It's Monday night. It's 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and you know what happens at that time? It is dialogue with Dozy. In the dialogue tonight, hey KB, we're giving him the night off. He's been pretty busy with us lately. We're giving him the night off, but by my side in the co-host chair is my dear cousin, my beloved cousin Janis Hazel. She's with us quite often. Jan, how is it today?
Well, it's absolutely wonderful celebrating Black all women across the world, International Women's Day or month, if you will. So I'm doing wonderful. It's nice and cold here in Detroit.
I was just about to ask you, since I can't pick on Kim and brag about the weather here, I was going to ask you what the weather's like up in the D. How cold is it?
I think it's 27 degrees right now. It'll probably go down to 17 degrees, which is not that bad
Oh, that's so
considering.
unfortunate. We would have to reverse those numbers and add about 10 to it, about 12 or 14 to it down here today. So,
I know.
short pants,
Absolutely.
brother, not rubbing it in. Well, as Janice said, this is International Celebration of Women. And I'm just going to go a lot further. A lot of us were raised by our Black women, and so we have another dimension. Jan and I were blessed to be raised by a strong, a two-parent household. We had strong men in our houses, but a lot of our brothers and sisters were raised solely by women, and so we just salute them tonight. And tonight we're going to talk about women's issues as a whole, but in the pre-show pre-production, just talking with these giants that we're about to introduce, just talking about something that guys like myself take for granted, and Jan and I would take for granted. Well, Jan wouldn't, but the double minority status, and which often equates to a double oppressive status that they've suffered. And they're going to talk about it, but we want to keep it positive. We're going to talk about how they have risen and done great things. I'm familiar with one of our guests. I was with her when she was going through some struggles, and then to be reconnected with the other guests, and to learn what she endured as a child. And I never knew that growing up in the church with her. Let's just bring them on right now. Dr. LaVon Bracy, she hails from Orlando, Florida, Old Town as we refer to it over there. She's a retired pastor. And we're going to let her tell her story. And Dr. Julia Hill, a blessed sister friend of our family. We're friends of the family. You've heard from Lewis Hill, her husband, before. And we're working through some issues with her. Dr. Bracy, introduce yourself, and then we're going to ask you to come back on and tell your compelling story.
Okay, I am LaVon Bracy. I live in Orlando, Florida. I'm a native Floridian and have been in the state most of my life. I spent 10 years in Philadelphia, 3 years in Rochester, New York. But for the most part, I spent the remainder. And I went to college in Nashville, Tennessee. So I've spent about 20 years outside of Florida, but I have spent a good 50 years in the state.
Doc, did you go to Tuskegee or Tennessee State?
I went to Fisk University.
Neither. Okay.
Yes.
Jan, did you get a chance to speak to Dr. Bracy?
Well, not before the show, but I'm pleased to meet you.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Doc,
I go to Detroit quite often. One of my husband's real good friend, Dr. Jim Holly. We often go to.
Reverend Holly.
Yes, he
Reverend
just
Holly.
retired.
Yes, a pillar of our community.
Right. Well, he's having his big celebration in June, so hopefully you have some good weather when we come in June.
Yeah, it has been known to snow as late as May. So by June, we will have nice warm weather to welcome you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Bracy, tell us a little bit. I know you're too much too humble to accentuate that, But we want to celebrate the accomplishment of women, and hopefully some of our guests um, will be encouraged by what they see from you ladies, the three ladies on the panel tonight. Doc, give us your educational accomplishments, please.
Well, I attended Fisk University and received a bachelor's degree from there. And I left there and I went to the University of Miami, received a master's from there. And I left there, and 2 or 3 years later, I went to the University of Florida and received a doctorate of education in higher education.
Go Gator. Gotta get
Okay.
that. Thanks. I didn't know you gotten an advanced degree down here in Miami. That's awesome. I spent
Yes, I am a hurricane, and I was really, I really wanted them to win that game on yesterday, but
Oh man.
it didn't happen for them. But uh, I consider myself more of a hurricane than I do of a gator.
Yeah. You know how hard it is for me growing up there in Jacksonville and being a Gator all my life, and then being here the last 20-some years. My son, all he knows is the hurricane. So I'm not mad at the Hurricanes. It's that other school in Tallahassee that's going to always be third
Okay.
place. Dr. Julia Hill is with us tonight also. And Dr. Hill, just tell us a little bit about yourself and give us your educational accomplishments, because we want women, our young ladies, and we're not so concerned about the numbers as this second because the show will be seen later. We want our young ladies to know, hey, Janine, and to be blessed by what they hear about your accomplishments.
Certainly. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Bracy and Mrs. Hazel. Indeed, an opportunity. I always love sharing, with my fellow sisters. We always have something to learn from each other. Just a little bit of my background. I grew up in Detroit. And yay, Detroit. I was there. Went through grade school, high school, went through college, graduated Michigan State University with a bachelor's in communications, master's of science from Wayne State University, and special education administration. I received an EDD at Drake University and then my PhD from Woodfield. It's quite interesting, and I hope that I have something that I can share today that's going to touch someone and encourage someone, especially our women of today. At the time in which I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, I went through grade school, which was predominantly African American, okay, and had a wonderful time. I loved school. I found a lot of great support there from the teachers, from the administration, and just received a lot of encouragement. When I graduated from high school and went directly to college, I guess I should say fortunate for me because I was double promoted twice. So I graduated from high school at 16, and at 16 and a half, I was in college. And that's where I met some different environments and different cultures, especially primarily white individuals. And I had a lot to learn. There were some challenges, and I thank God, for his grace and his presence. And that's what got me through it, but from that point up until today, there has been challenges and concerns and struggles that many African American women and women of other races and colors you find, encounters today. And I hope that I can share some of that experience. And with that experience, it can lead someone else along a path of success. Thank you.
Dr. Hill, I did not know that you, like yourself, I finished school at 16, but not like you. I was not promoted, double promoted.
Oh, okay.
Our parents started we two older boys. They started us at age 16,
Okay.
and well, I just leave it at that. It kind of hampered me as far as the girls and
Sure.
athletics because I was so small, and of course
Yes.
I broke my leg in 10th grade. I started growing, but anyway, that's the inspiration I want
I'm sure.
everybody to hear that double
Of
promoting. And
course.
I know, Dr. Bracy, you were probably like first in your class or something
Yes.
like that. And we
Yes.
just want to we want to produce academics, because there's
Absolutely.
this narrative out there that
Hmm.
we're less than in the academic arena, and that needs to
Hmm.
be God distributed brains in the projects as well as in the suburbs. So
Of
we just
course.
want to get Jan, weigh in with your homegirl.
Well, go blue. I went to the University of Michigan, grew up in Detroit, from elementary school through high school. And then I went to Ann Arbor, University of Michigan, where I was a political science major. And I was very, very fortunate to be able to move to Washington, D.C. when I got out of college. I did my internships in Washington, D.C., and decided that that's what I wanted to do. So my career has not been linear in a straight line. It's been about my interest, and it's been about those places that I've been recruited to because of what I had done prior. So I've worked in the United States Senate for a Michigan senator, senior senator at that time. I've worked for Congressman John Conyers in the United States House of Representatives, who was my congressman for Detroit. And I started my career working for Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. So I had an opportunity to work with some real giants who made a huge impact on America and our civil liberties and our human liberties. And from my congressional legislative background, which really I boil that down to being a writer and a negotiator, I went off the hill to be a lobbyist for industry. So I was a negotiator for legislation which became laws or amendments to laws. And then I also negotiated the policy for implementing those laws with the various executive agencies, such as the Environmental Protection Agency. A lot of the codes and standards that we live under today, I had something to do with for commercial properties, buildings throughout the world, United States, United Kingdom, Japan, and Australia. And things such as making sure that you have safe fire codes in your buildings, commercial and residential, in terms of apartment structures, all the sexy issues like asbestos abatement or underground storage tank removal, all those things that help to keep our environment safe, as well as I was a lobbyist in the broadcasting industry. And so, as I said, I boiled my experience down to being a writer and a negotiator. And I also flex my wings in the space of entertainment. So I've had an opportunity to work with and represent some iconic musicians and music creators, such as Aretha Franklin, my favorite Prince, Larry Graham, uh, the Supremes, just a number of people that I've worked with over the years, representing their intellectual property rights, which is what their creations are, and those who didn't get a good deal out of it. So I've worked in Congress, I have beat up on Congress, and I am back home in the D, enjoying myself working in broadcasting once again.
Amen. Well, I didn't know you worked with Larry Graham. With the singing in the background, I won't dare do that one in a
Million
one in a million.
lifetimes.
I won't do it. I won't do that. Listen, Dr. Bracy has a as everybody on here has a compelling story. And Dr. Bracy grew up in St. Augustine. She can tell it better than I can. Would you, Doc?
Okay, all right, I will. Yeah, I grew up in St. Augustine, Florida, and we all know that St. Augustine is the oldest city in the United States. My mom was a school teacher. She was a reading teacher, and she loved to teach reading. Mom said she could take a 3-year old and teach them to be excellent in reading. And my dad was a preacher, and he also was the president of the NAACP. Well, I grew up in the 50s and the 60s in St. Augustine, and I was during that time, segregation was rampant. And my dad, being president of the NAACP, He felt that if St. Augustine was the oldest city in the United States, they needed to be a model city for the United States. So he sought to get equity for Black and Brown folk in St. Augustine. He would go to school board meetings and complain that we were using second class books, hand me down books, really from white schools. The schools were in terrible shape. They needed to be not refurbished, but rebuilt. But no money was being spent for Black children. Dad would go to the city commission meetings and complain that they were not spending any resources where Blacks lived in St. Augustine. So Dad was considered a troublemaker. He was told by those that were in charge, if he did not stop causing trouble in St. Augustine, that our family would suffer as a result of it. Well, Dad felt that it was necessary if we were going to have any equity, someone had to take the reins and try to make a difference. Well, my mother was called in from her job and told that she was being fired because of my dad's activities with the NAACP, and he kept causing what they considered trouble in St. Augustine. Mom was really upset. It really interfered with our family in the sense that we were accustomed to two parents working, and there were four children, and now mom doesn't have her job. So she went to find another job. She found a job in a place called Bunnell, which is about 45 miles from St. Augustine. So it really interfered with the family schedule because mom had to get up very early in the morning to be on a job and travel 45 miles. So mom had the second job as a reading teacher. She kept that job for about a year before the principal called her in, told her that Miss Wright, you're the best reading teacher that I have, but because of your husband's activities, uh, you're going to be fired. So she was fired from her second job. So my mom was just exasperated and gave my dad an ultimatum saying, I don't think that you can save St. Augustine, and we're going to have to find somewhere else to live. I can't find a job anywhere. And if you choose to stay here, I'll leave you here by myself and take my four children with me. So, my dad knew my mom was really meant business about that. So he went to find another job somewhere. So we went to a place called Gainesville, Florida, which is about 150 miles from St. Augustine. But before we left St. Augustine, the Ku Klux Klan decided to burn a cross in front of our house. They wanted us to make sure that they knew where we lived, and they wanted to make sure that if my dad did not stop what he was doing, that we would suffer greatly. Well, before we left St. Augustine, my dad wrote to Martin Luther King asking him to come to St. Augustine to see if, in fact, we could make a difference in what was happening. Martin Luther King did come to St. Augustine. Things didn't get any better, they got worse. My dad was called to a church to pastor in Gainesville, and we left St. Augustine by night. My mother had all of us and lay down in the car in case the Ku Klux Klan was following us, and so that if they did, they would only see one person in the car. So we moved to our new home now in Gainesville, Florida. And the one thing my mom asked my dad, promise me you will not get involved with the NAACP. You will not do anything. We will live like normal human beings, and we don't have to worry about the Ku Klux Klan. My dad promised her, I will not do anything. We will live like normal human beings. And things went well for us for maybe 6 months. until one day mom was going to church and this lady stopped her and said, "Oh, Miss Wright, we are delighted that Reverend Wright is now a president of the NAACP. We are going to change Gainesville just like he worked in St. Augustine." My mom was livid because she knew that she had lost two jobs and she just assumed that she was going to lose the third job. My dad promised her that he wouldn't get involved. She got so upset. And he then says, "Well, I'm going to do this for 1 year." 1 year turned out to be 18 years. So now my dad is president of the NAACP in Gainesville. He wants to see what is it that I need to do in Gainesville. This is 1964. And 1954 was Brown versus the Board of Education. 10 years have passed. Schools are still segregated. So first thing my dad does is go to the school board. He asks, "When are you going to integrate the school system?" The school board member says to him, "It might be another 10 or 15 years. We're not going to allow the Supreme Court to mandate what we're going to do here in Gainesville." So dad said, "That's just fine." He filed a suit with the NAACP to integrate the school system. They won the lawsuit. The judge said that they must integrate with all deliberate speed. So now it is 1964. The schools must integrate. And now, since my dad has filed this suit, he has to figure out how he's going to get parents to move their kids from the all black school to the all white school. Well, his strategy was, "I'm going to start at high school because if I start at high school, I can get 10th, 11th, and 12th graders to go to the all white school." So he knocked on about 500 doors. He found one 10th grader, one 11th grader, and no 12th grader. He was just disgusted. He was disappointed. And I was in the 12th grade. My brother was in the 12th grade. I had skipped one grade. And I said to my brother, I said, "We're in the same grade. Why don't we go to the all white school? Dad would be happy. We would graduate together." And my brother said to me, "Listen, I am in the 12th grade. I'm in the band. I'm in the student council. I'm very popular. And I have three girlfriends. Why would I leave my three girlfriends at the all black school, all who love me dearly, to go to the all white school where nobody wants me?" So I'm not doing it. And I said, "Well, Dad would really," she said, "I'm sorry, your dad is going to be sad because I'm not going to do it." Well, my brother said no. I really anguished over the fact, this is my senior year. Do I really want to go to the all white school? Well, I thought about it. My dad was in a precarious situation. He could not ask other parents to do what he was not willing to do himself. So I said, "Dad, here I am. Send me. I'll go to the all white school." He says, "Well, we better not tell your mom right now. That might not be the best subject at the time to say to her." So he took him all summer to convince her that I needed to go to the all white school. Mom reluctantly said yes until about 3 weeks before school was to start. The FBI came to the house, and the FBI said, "We cannot guarantee the safety of these three kids. And therefore, we want you to postpone this integration for another 4 or 5 years." Well, my dad said, "You had 10 years and you did nothing." Absolutely not. So my dad had to make some agreements with the FBI. First, he had to agree that he would take all three of us to school every day. I had to agree that I would not participate in any activities. I couldn't go to a football game, basketball game. I couldn't go to a prom. I couldn't go senior class. Anything where kids would congregate, I could not participate. So I said yes to that. So it was time now for school. My mom had said no all over again, so Dad had to convince her again to say yes. So now it is time for school to start. My parents talked to me the night before, and they say to me, "This will perhaps be the hardest job that you will ever do in your entire life. You're going into a climate where nobody wants you there.
Mhm.
You will not be welcome. And you need to make sure." My mom always said to me, "I want you to kill them with kindness. If they are nasty to you, be kind to them."
Mhm.
So I can remember very vividly not getting any sleep the night before school started because I really didn't know what the next day would be like. I did not know if I would find a welcome wagon. I just didn't know what to expect. Did not sleep. Got up early, was ready for school 2 hours ahead of time. Mom fixed me a big breakfast, but I was so nervous I couldn't eat. So the three of us, the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, we get in the car with my dad. We have a policeman in front of us and policeman behind us escorting us to our class, our school. My dad has prayer with us. The 10th grader goes to her class, the 11th grader goes to his class, and as I, the 12th grader, began to go to my class, 6 white students surround me and say, "Why are you here? We don't want you here. We don't want our class to make history. We need you to go back to the all black school. And if by chance you don't, this year will be hell on earth for you." I proceed to go to my class. Before I got there, they spit on me, called me the N word, and told me that I would regret not going back to the black school. Well, when I got to my class, I sat on the first row, the first seat. The whole class got up, went to the other side, and said, "I rather sit. I rather stand than sit by the N word." So they all stood up. Every day I got rats, roaches in my seat.
Oh
Uh,
my.
call me the N word every day. They spit
Mhm.
on me every day. Uh, and the hardest part of the whole day was trying to see how I would get to the bathroom. I knew that if I went to the restroom on my way to class, on my way when the classes changed, that I would be beaten by them. So I'd go to class, ask for a pass, run to the bathroom, and run back. So I had to watch my liquid intake in order to survive during the day so that I wouldn't have to go to the bathroom but once a day. To make matters worse, um, one day I was jumped by 6 white guys because they saw that putting tacks in my seat, putting roaches and and snakes under my seat and writing me real nasty letters did not deter me. So they just decided one day that they would just beat me up. They beat me. I was bleeding everywhere. And I thought that would be the last day that I would be on this earth. I was saved by the bell because when the bell rang, everybody scattered. Everybody saw me on the ground bleeding, but nobody stopped. So I waited. I stumbled in the principal's office, told him I had been beaten. The principal said to me, "How do I know you didn't leave home like that? I didn't see anybody beat you. And if by chance it happened, you ought to know by now you're not welcome and you need to go back to where you belong." So I asked him, could I use the phone? He said no. I stumbled across the street to a payphone. And that's when you had a dime and you put it in the payphone and you made a call. Told my dad I had been beaten. Dad came, picked me up, took me to the only black doctor that was in town. The doctor stitched me up, I have stitches from my head from the front to the back that I will die with. And the doctor says, you've been beaten up really badly. You need to go home. You don't need to go back to school right now. So I said, Dad, I'm not going back to the white school. He said, well, you don't have to. I said, I'm going back to the black school. So I went home, stayed home about 5 days, told my dad, take me back to school. He said, I thought you weren't going back to school. I said, you know what? If I don't go back, they win. I lose. I can't afford to let them win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go back to school, and if they kill me, they just kill me. So I went back. They redoubled their efforts. To make a long story short, I graduated. I was the first Black to integrate and graduate Gainesville High School in 1965. So that's my story. And it is still, I'm 73 years old. It is still the worst year that I had on this planet. Was the year I integrated the public school system. So, in a nutshell, that's my story.
Unmute.
I've heard you tell your story. I had no idea you were beaten that badly. I did not grasp that part of the story. What a hero you are. What an absolute hero you are. Listen, we want to talk, we want to hear Dr. Hill's story. I am aware of some of the oppression that she suffered when she was working on the EDD there at Drake. Was it, Dr. Hill?
Yes, that's correct. Certainly.
Well, we're going to take a short break and pay a bill or two, and we'll be right back, and we'll be right back, and we'll talk about that story. And Jan, I know you got some questions, and let's just hear from a word from our sponsor. Now they get mad when I expound on their commercial, but GoGigaWorld.com is currently involved in a campaign from over in Africa. They're doing virtual work from Africa. All of your virtual needs. Don't cheat yourself. Go see them. Okay, Dr. Hill, share with us a little of your story and your struggles. And again, as we were saying just before we came on, you ladies catch it both ways. You're double minorities.
Certainly, absolutely. Before I say anything else, I want to make sure I reach our parents and say to our parents, trust your children, trust your child, those children that are in school, be it grade school, be it college, support them, advocate for them, believe in them. Because sometimes within the educational environment, what you get from adults is not always true. And that's a big challenge, okay? Let me just share that I have worked in many different states, mainly Midwest, Illinois. I started out in Michigan in the educational system, worked through Wisconsin several times, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and other of the suburban areas within Wisconsin, Nebraska, and now I'm in Texas with some new educational experiences that I'm sure I'll be able to share within the near future. But there has been a struggle for me throughout many of the times. Like Dr. Bracy had said about her father being a troublemaker, I was considered a troublemaker also. Okay. I was the one that rocked the boat, and I was the one that challenged the system. And I'm very happy to say, to this day, my three children had followed, my footsteps. Reverend Varner, you remember so diligently how my son had protested Sterling School District and some of the literature that was there. And they kind of continued that as they grew into the adults. But with my experience, I have worked as a teacher, kindergarten through 12th grade. And I've worked as in special education, many of the specialized areas, not only as a teacher, but also as an administrator. I've worked as a principal, director of education with the Department of Education, Department of Instruction, and have certification in Director of Pupil Services. And in addition to that, I have worked in the university, several universities, and worked as a professor or adjunct professor. So as you see, my experience, ranges from preschool all the way up through college. So not only in working with children, with parents, with students, with staff, but also in working with the politics of those particular environments. I have a lot to say and little time to say. So, Latoya, Reverend Varda, you're going to have to call me back. Certainly, certainly. But within the environments, I feel that I kind of pioneered the way for much success that many of our African American and educators of culture are receiving today. It was really tough for me. And with a lot of the challenges is like they didn't believe me. I went in for an interview at Miller West High School in Nebraska, and there were four white guys that interviewed me, and they did not believe that I had a PhD. And they asked me, "Why are you lying?" And it really took me back. You got my credentials, I've sent them all to you, but yet you still don't believe, that these are my credentials and these are my qualifications. No, I didn't work for them. I walked out the door. That was not a place I wanted to be. Okay. But that, with many of my years of experience had been a challenge. Yeah, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, and I let people know that I have a lot to say and a lot to share. But sometimes I may come on a little bit too strong for some people who are not quite as qualified or who do not have the credentials that I have. Okay. But I let them know that I'm proud of what I've accomplished. My self worth is very strong, and I don't care who you are or what you bring to the table. You're not going to destroy that. I'm very proud, of what I bring forth to the table. It has been a blessing for me because I've had the opportunity, as I said, to work with parents and students and teachers and administrators. And it's kind of interesting that they single me out and they come to me. In Detroit, I was president of the union, teachers union. In Wisconsin, I was vice president for the administrators union. So many of the individuals that I work with within those particular areas know that I'm aware of the legal ramification that come along with what's considered appropriate education. Okay. So parents seek me out. Parents call me on the telephone. Parents come to me crying. Students come to me crying. I just don't know what to do. And in many cases, it's not the students. Our students, are very knowledgeable and they have some great, great skills. What we need is to make sure we provide the appropriate instruction and follow through with. You can't teach children and treat them like they're in a factory if you remember the industrial age. And that is a lot of what our school systems and curriculum are built upon today. treat them all the same, give them all the same curriculum. We all have the same expectation. 84%, you pass the course, okay, with all the prerequisites, but without that, you're failing. We have a lot of children failing. My last district where I worked at, the last school year, 80% failure rate for many of our schools. That's ridiculous. Okay.
Wow.
It should not happen. It should not happen. We need to individualize education for all of our children. Our children are not the same. Their mannerism, children are children wherever they go and whatever they do. We know that. You know, we can watch them play without any adults, you know, really up on them. And you see that they'll get along with each other. They don't fight. They don't argue. They're having a good time. So why can't the same thing happen within our school environments? Okay. I look at a lot of our young people today, teenagers especially, they're into the video gaming, the technology, you know, and the manipulating. That takes a lot of skills and a lot of talent for them to be able to do that and to maintain. But the analysis in the school environment is that they can't do it, you know, and they continue to fail. So we need to get someone in and, you know, to continue to advocate for our children and, you know, to base the curriculum on what their needs are. The curriculum needs to change. And that's something that I have been fighting for the 50 plus years, you know, in which I was in education. You me taking a look at my book, you're going to publicize it later, creating an effective and learning environment for students with oppositional and defiant behavior. And you can purchase it at amazon.com. Okay. Contact me 414-807-7621, and I'll make sure you get an autographed copy. But here, I have gone through and identified all of my experiences, all of my years in working with children. Okay. We talk about some children that may have some mental health issues, some medical or medication issues, and that's a little bit different. But what I'm talking about today are children that always end up at central office for central office hearings, for expulsions, okay, or for disciplinary concerns, or to be placed in juvenile, you know, facilities. There's a way in which we can reach and approach and teach our children successfully, but we have to make sure that we are bonding with them, we are connecting with them, and that we as our team are going in and working for and toward the success of our children, because they can be. I do see a higher failure rate with our African American children. And it's true through my experience that by third grade, they've already have been identified and, you know, they're pushed off to prison, whatever the case may be. I've seen many kids that have been provoked by adults, and that has to change. And this is why I say to our parents, you know, advocate for your children. There's been some personal racial issues that have happened within the educational environment, but that made it a greater challenge for me, you know, and I've overcome a lot of that. And when I communicate with my staff or with, you know, other people within the education environment, I just share my experience and say, you know, let me tell you what I did. And if this can help you, you know, then by all means. But I do find that within the educational environment that people of color, children, staff, teachers have a more difficult, challenging time, not only for them, but for women of color. They have even a higher time because they're not given the jobs, regardless of their credentials, and they're not giving the salary. And there is a lot of disrespect because of their intelligence and their ability. So we have a lot to do and we have a long way to go.
So we got about 15 minutes. Jan, I want you to weigh in. Dr. Hill hit. Now, that's, the scripture says, the one who is greatest amongst you will be your servant. We asked her to talk about some of the disparities that she has incurred because of being a double minority, and she's advocating for the children. She's moving beyond her. She did share an experience or two, but she's advocating for the children. That's what a true servant does. Jan, what does it take? In your co-host, you're not asking your question. What does it take, Jan, for us to bridge the gap? I heard Dr. Hill at the end talk about the gap financially between men and women. What is it going to take to bridge that gap and to get women just out there and known?
For men to get out of the way, for men to
Hey,
recognize for men to recognize their sexist,
Mhm.
paternalistic tendencies. That's what I fight. I think through my career trajectory, I have experienced more sexism than racism. You know,
Mhm.
racism is always there, but racism and sexism are cousins, they're first cousins. And I have had my life threatened. I applaud Dr. Bracy. I stand on your shoulders. I thank you so much for all that you've done and given, because it's women like you, I dare say, unsung heroes that we don't always know your name in the bright lights,
Mhm.
but we stand on your shoulders. And I thank you so much. I just chills went through my body hearing about your story, because that mirrors a lot of what my mother went through growing up in Alabama. Of course, she moved to Detroit, and she would always say that she's still waiting some 60 years later to get a call from General Motors for a job
Mhm.
she applied to back in the 1950s.
wow.
She was an incredible stenographer, incredible administrative talent. She, graduated from college like yourself. She was 16, double promoted several times. But I'm going to sum things up with some quotes by someone that I greatly admire, someone that I had the opportunity to sit at her knee, if you will, and work with. Outside of my mother, who was my greatest hero or heroine, as I
Mhm.
said, I had an opportunity to work with some incredible women. I had the opportunity to work with Rosa Parks. She worked in Congressman Conyers' Detroit office, and I worked in his Washington office. Had an opportunity to work with Congressman Conyers on the making of the Martin Luther King holiday bill. I sat next to him in uh, in a committee when it was actually passed out of committee after 15 years, and we were able to get it signed into law. Um, I'm working on reparations for African Americans descended of enslaved people. I helped to write that legislation back 33 years ago, back in 1989. But I want to sum things up, because there's a quote that I keep on my desk, and it is, well behaved women seldom make history. And those women who do make trouble stand up, speak out, and find the courage to lead are like Dr. Bracy. We stand on their shoulders. And a
Mhm.
number of quotes that I want to leave with you that Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, who was the first African American, the first Black American to run for a major party's nomination in 1972. She was the first Black woman in Congress in 1968. And she was the first woman to ever run for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination at that point in time. Some of the things she used to say to me and the rest of her staff, which she made it a point to have all women on her staff, she would say, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. She used to
Mhm.
say, tremendous amounts of talent are lost to our society because they wear a skirt. She used to
Mhm.
say, we must reject not only the stereotypes that others hold of us, but also the stereotypes that we hold of ourselves. She said numerous times, you don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas. She
Mhm.
said on numerous occasions when I was in her presence, I'd like them to say that Shirley Chisholm had guts. That's how I'd like to be remembered. And last but not least, she would say, I'm looking to no man walking this earth for approval for what I'm doing. And so often when women stand up and speak out, we are called angry women. Well, yes, I am angry. I'm a Black woman in the United States where
Mhm.
sexism and racism is blatant. We saw that on grand display last week at the confirmation hearings for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Mhm.
Racism,
Mhm.
sexism,
Mhm.
disrespect. This woman is more qualified and more experienced as a nominee going. uh, into the nomination than any sitting justice on that Supreme Court. More
That's right.
trial experience than any of them. Has been confirmed 3 times for the court, and the highest court in the District of Columbia, which I lived in the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. for 30 years, incredibly qualified. But they did not attack her expressly on her record. And what they did was really asinine. But it was more so on her being. Just she
Mhm.
shouldn't have been there. And here's a woman who dared to go to Harvard University. She dared to become a sitting judge on numerous courts in Washington, D.C. She dared to stand up and speak out, not to be a martyr, just being herself. So those are the spaces that we're told we shouldn't be in. And the sexism, I don't consider myself a feminist, I'm a humanist, but I'm
Mhm.
always seeing that. Last night, we saw we saw in great grand detail the horrific disrespect of Jada
Mhm.
Pinkett Smith by a Black man. And let me say by
Mhm.
2 Black men, because the
Mhm.
executive producer of the Oscars was a Black man, Will Packard.
Mhm.
And so everyone is up in arms about her husband standing up for her. But I'm going to read a quote that Malcolm X said, and it's so true, just as if it were said today, but it was actually said 60 years ago in Los Angeles while he was speaking to a group of women, in which he said, and this is a quote from Malcolm X, he stated, "The most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most
Mhm.
unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most
Mhm.
neglected person in America is the Black woman." That was 60 years ago that he said it, and it's still happening today. So when I say men need to get out of the way, because they are our fathers, they are our brothers, they are our husbands, our partners. But the sexism runs deep in terms of what they think we should be. And we certainly do. What was that commercial in the 1970s? We can fry the bacon up in a pan and we bring the bacon meaning be the breadwinner, the cash, the earnings. We can bring it all home. I don't like that whole thing of, oh, she's a strong Black woman. I'm just being myself. And
Mhm.
what I've had to do to stand up for other communities as an elected official, as a commissioner, where I saw the need in the hood, which was still Capitol Hill, I was called a martyr because I
Mhm.
stood up to the injustices of the system for other people. You know, I mean, it's incredible that when we stand up and make noise in a space where men don't think we should be, we're troublemakers. But John
Mhm.
Lewis said, "You make good trouble." So I have been threatened. My life has been threatened by white men because I came strong. And being in the body of a woman, men are not accustomed to seeing women negotiate, speak up and speak out, and not tolerate certain behaviors. Just like last night, I felt so bad for Jada Pinkett Smith. The look on her face was one of demoralization. For Chris Rock to attack her because of the way she looks, Black women are always attacked for the way she looks. I'm attacked for wearing an afro, the way that my hair grows. Yes, I color it purple because I like that color, but I get attacked for the texture and the size of it.
Mhm.
Jada Pinkett Smith was attacked because she has an autoimmune disorder, like
Mhm.
myself. Yes, you see this big fluffiness, but there are bald spots within my hair. I have
Mhm.
alopecia, and that's what she has. And a Black man attacked her. So while I don't condone or advocate for violence, I say bravo, Will Smith, for taking up for your wife, where 2 Black men, because I've been in that space producing for the Grammys and other large scale events, and everything that's said typically is scripted. He wasn't riffing. That was known what he was going to say. So Chris Rock thought it was okay to attack a woman based on her health disposition, not her work, not her acting. You can attack her acting, her craft all day
Mhm.
and all night, but to attack her appearance is really malicious and it's so unnecessary. So that's what we face every day, all day, whether it's on the street, my Black men saying, oh, your derriere is too ample, too large, or too small. And it also happened in the United States Senate. Confirmation hearings. 30 years ago, we had a man confirmed on the court accused of sexually harassing another very, very strong woman, but they made her into a villain. That's what we're up against, and we still prevail. So, Dr. Hill, you are a hero of mine. I'm just meeting you, but I'm so glad that you are in that education space to help our babies stop getting labeled and stereotyped and to educate their parents on how they should advocate for them. And Dr. Bracy, once again, I'm just in love with how you persevered and you came through it. Those are the stories that need to be told because unfortunately I came behind you about 20 years and I knew of those type of stories because of my parents telling me about how they had to walk to school past the white school to the only black school, and they also saw that strange fruit hanging in the trees, the lynchings, the the total dehumanization of black people. Those are who we stand on the shoulders of. And I'm in love with knowing the living legends that are here today. Thank you so much, Joselle, for bringing them forward to tell their stories, because that's what women are up against. And not just Black women, white women, Asian women, Hispanic women, women in general. You know, we're celebrating women, but that has to go all day, every day. And as I said, men need to stand out of the way, step out of the way, and stop treating us as second class citizens. Because again, the Black woman is always last in every area, even though she has more talent than most of the people in the room typically. So I stand proud, I stand strong, and I stand with you.
Hey Jan, you always bring it, and we just appreciate your uplifting, and you being so transparent, and I'm just gonna say you're a cousin, but I'm saying anyway. You're absolutely beautiful, and you wear life well, and God knows that you're an advocate of anything. Okay, we've got about 2 minutes apiece, and I want to go around the horn because we want this show to leave an impression on our younger women, and I'm going to find a way to market this to that crowd by way of boosting. But we want you all to just share what I know. Dr. Bracy is Doc. You got to tell us about what you're doing now, and leave a word with our young ladies that yes, we can do it. And Dr. Hill, that's the message we want you all to leave. Would you all just go by and just share that with us briefly, please, ma'am?
Well, right now, I'm working with this group called Faith in Florida. I'm director of democracy. I spent a whole year when I was a senior in silence because I had no friends. I had no one to talk with me, no one to welcome me. And I know how it is when you're left out. And that's what we see to a degree today when I see people who have decided, I want to be left out. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to be a part of the decision makings. When I find people who don't have a voice, I say that you are allowing somebody else to make crucial decisions for you. So right now, I am working trying to expand the electorate in the state of Florida because Black and brown people need to make sure that their voices be heard. I've also written a book called Brave Little Cookie because I want children to know, regardless to what obstacles that may come your way, you can be bold, you can be brave, and you too can be successful. So you can get my book, bravelittlecookie.com, on my website. Thank you for having me. I have enjoyed being with you.
Bless you, Doc.
I would like to conclude by saying, I spend a lot of my time in conversing about our children. Yes, the children are our future. And as it relates to racism, sexism, or any kind of isms, that occur, we have to teach our children, both male and female, that there is a challenge and the challenge has to be met. So by giving them the skills and giving them the tools to confront those challenges, it's going to make a better future for the entire society.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. Thank you, Dr. Bracy. So the producer has already given me the instructions that both of you ladies will have to come back on, and if we can coordinate, well, no, let me change that. We will coordinate the schedule that the two of you all will be back together, and Jan will be the guest hostess, and you guys have just been absolutely outstanding, and we're not going to relegate to a Women's History Month, because your vastness is far supersedes those issues. And we're going to bring you back. And Dr. Bracy just touched on what she does as empowering people to vote. She I'm blessed to be a part of that staff. We got the neat little book bag up, by the way. I'm blessed. That's the inside joke with Faith in Florida. Blessed to be a part of that staff, Jan. And on that staff, man, all of these years, and I kind of think Dr. Brace is already retired. I kind of think that I'm pushing towards retirement in ministry. But Faith in Florida, God just took me back on the streets. I mean, really doing evangelism. And sometimes, you quote Malcolm X, we quote Jesse, we quote Dr. King. Sometimes it's the gospel, yes, but sometimes it's the social gospel. You see, Christ didn't come and just tell us about the great pie in the sky by and by. He empowered us to live now. And that's what Dr. Bracy is mentoring me to do. And it's just a blessing, Dr. Hill, going on these streets and going back into, I coach high school football, and being with these young men and telling them, listen, guys, yeah, it does make a difference. Don't let that foolishness that came out stop the steal a few years ago fool you. Yes. No, it does make a difference. John Kennedy was elected in 1960 by less than one vote per precinct around this nation. We just had the great Congressman Alcee Hastings, Jan. The vote for his seat was a difference of 10 votes, if you can believe that, 10 votes. So your vote does make a difference. Yes. And I'm blessed to be mentored by Dr. Bracy and Minister Griff, who was with us last week, and others to bless our young people and everybody to use that right that's given to us as an American citizen. We got to get you all back on. God bless you. Thank you for coming our way today.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Bless y'all.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for being here. Jan, if Kim would be here, the closing segment would be As I See It. I just want you to take 45 seconds. You can't do that. Take a minute and just summarize what we're talking about tonight.
Oh, wow. Well, that's an honor. Thank you for giving me that send-off platform. As I see it, women are in every place, every space. And the disrespect is what I'm really seeing right now. And I've been seeing it for years, particularly in music. And I'm going to talk about Black women, that our Black men, our rappers have been disrespecting us. And that, for me, last night during the Oscars, yet another bit of disrespect for a woman, a Black woman, at the mouth of a Black man. As I said, you can always criticize a person's performance, criticize their record, but why are you criticizing and throwing pot shots at a person because of the way they look? Black women have to go through that all the time. From our hair, our skin color, having a certain body type. And it's just got to stop so that we can be all that we can be. So as I see it, women are great. They give birth to everyone. So let's all get along and let women thrive and earn the same as men for the same work that they do and get the recognition for the work that we do. And our nation and our world will be much better for it. that's how I see it. I'm Janis Hazel, and thank you.
Thanks, Jan. As I see it, we take this month and we celebrate. You saw me thumb my nose at the calendar makers because they gave us relegated 1 month, what used to be 1 week, to celebrate African American history. Funniest thing, we're Black all our lives. So I thumb my nose at the calendar, and we continue the celebration of African American history really up until last week. Women are not to be relegated to one month of celebration. Ladies, we celebrate you every month. As a Black man or as a male, for every rapper from, well, I won't call names, but from every rapper who has disrespected you with their lyrics, their depiction of you, I apologize. I apologize every rapper, every singer, every entertainer for what Chris Rock did last night. I apologize. As I see it, women are the backbones of our communities. You are the motherhood of humanity. You are the blessed ones whom God uses to be the blessing. Yesterday's sermon, I talked about Mother Mary, that the Catholic Church almost deitizes because of her function in this world. Ladies, we couldn't make it without you. Thank God that the standard is coming up and you're being honored more than you have been. But I want to say to all of my young sisters out there, and I wanted to talk to Sister Hill, we'll talk about it next time. She had an opportunity to mentor a young lady whose name is Minda Harts. Minda Harts is now world renowned. She's an educator. She's a writer. She's often cast on the program. She's often on Morning Joe. And she was mentored by Dr. Julia Hill right at the Macedonia Church. You never know what lives you touch. As I see it, Jesus came through the womb of a woman. That's the way God made it. Men, let's respect our women and let's fight for them and let's honor them because they are the cradle of civilization. Listen, Dialogue with Dozy, we're brought to you tonight by BoyGoGigit.com. We're grateful for the exciting job that they do to make this show what it is. I can't express how grateful I am tonight for my cousin by my side here tonight, and for two people who I've known in different parts of my life, Dr. Julia Hill and Dr. LaVon Bracy, and we've come full circle. We're back working together now. Just prime examples. So grateful I am to know heroines like this, sheroes like this in my life, and to say, I know these two publishers. I know these two innovators. I know these two outstanding pillars of our national community. How grateful we are. Dialogue with Dozy. We'll be back at you next week. Next week, we're going to do a hot button sports night. Hot button sports night. I'm kind of disappointed that the men shunned tonight's show because we were talking about the issues of women, our regular. I'm not going to beat up on you guys, but we'll do better. We'll do better. You saw all of the women that were depicted on the promo poster. These two ladies should be right at the end of that poster. And Janine and others like them, Latoya Williams, Latoya Glenn, and others working your ways to be right there so that 20 years from now, we'll be celebrating you as part of our historical framework. God bless you. We'll see you next week, 8 o'clock, Dialogue with Dozy, right here, 8 Eastern. Be blessed.